Well, contrary to what may be thought by the wider electorate, there is any amount of common sense within the coalition opposition in Canberra, but too infrequently it doesn't get a voice. Matt Canavan, of course, is a beacon of common sense. Alex Antich, the senator from South Australia, is all class. But these people can't get a Guernsey. The coalition is still far too woke, but there is a breath of fresh air. The new member for the rural electorate of Flynn in Queensland, Colin Boyce. Now, he was the state member for Callide in the Queensland Parliament, but he got onto the front foot immediately as a candidate, which is exactly what the coalition should be doing now. And Colin Boyce argued that a net zero emission target would entrench Australia into a lower standard of living, that it would be people in regional areas who'd bear the brunt of it. His electorate is dominated by emissions-heavy mining and agriculture. Agriculture never mentioned by Bowen as a victim of Labor policy. In Colin Boyce's electorate, mining and agriculture are the two biggest employers, and Colin Boyce is now the new federal member for Flynn, says a net zero policy would put an end to the coal-fired power station that's needed to power Gladstone's gas plants and alumina refineries. This is reality, common sense. Colin Boyce is also a farmer who said bluntly, if we walk away from the affordable coal-fired power, we're walking away from jobs. Now remember, we were told at the last election, when the Teals got elected, it was all about net zero and climate change, and the coalition had to change and get with it. Really? Well, there was barely a swing against Colin Boyce, yet he was a brand new candidate. In fact, his two-party preferred vote was almost 54%. The Greens got 4% of the vote. Wouldn't you be fighting in the seat of Flynn? Because it was all mining, all agriculture. This is where you'd have to go up and make sure your policy stood up. The Greens got 4%. They were fighting against coal mines. In an outstanding maiden speech, Colin Boyce issued a warning to the wider electorate of Australia, and he said, quote, I say this, ordinary Australian people require and deserve the basics of life, food security, water security, energy security and national security. He threw in a little bit of Latin with it. He said, de omnibus dubitatum, question everything he said. Now, this bloke's now the Shadow Minister for Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Development. I'll talk to him in another interview about that. We're not about that tonight, but I can't see any infrastructure project going ahead with renewable energy. He joins me. Colin Boyce, congratulations, a magnificent maiden speech. That should be circulated to every politician. I suppose there are only about 10 in the House to hear you. But I've got to say to you a little bit of personal stuff. I can identify with that. You said, this bloke said in his maiden speech, and he was talking about me and himself, he said, I remember candles, kerosene lanterns, kerosene fridges, but he was a bit ahead of me. He's had 32-volt lighting plants. We didn't have any of them. Party line telephones. Yes, they existed where everyone could hear your conversation, but Colin, we weren't good enough for a telephone. There were no telephone wires anywhere, but mosquito nets, I remember them, and fly paper. He said there was a wood stove, that's me, and a wood heap, the axe and the chopping block, the chook pen, yep, where the eggs came from, and the garden where the vegetables grew. I'm with Colin Boyce on all of that. Trips to town were rare, yep, with the exception of the mailman who came weekly. And he said we'd see no one other than immediate family for weeks. Colin, good to talk to you. Oh dear, you're a breath of fresh air. That speech should actually be on the front page of every paper around the country. Times have changed, we admit that, but not necessarily for the better, eh?
Oh, well, thank you, Alan. It's great to be on your program finally. Absolutely. And I remember those things well, and things have changed, and that's all because of the advent of affordable electricity, energy. That is what has driven us as a nation to develop our industry, our agriculture, and all of the things that we take for granted these days. One of the big problems that I see is that metropolitan Australia has become absolutely divorced from how the necessities of life get produced and how they get provided for them. And this is a real problem for us.
Absolutely.